What's up, Pirates? Wraith and Jim here, back with Awaken TCG, and we're here to give you guys another video. This is going to be the OP04 pre-release event guide. Basically, we're going to give you tips. We have a long list of cards to go over. We're going to skim through the ones that are like okay. We're going to show off a quick sec the bad ones, and then we're going to go a little more in depth on the cards that you really need to take and why. All right, Pirates, we're going to go ahead and start. As you can see here, here is the start of our pre-release event guide. We're going to go ahead and show you guys a quick little tier list, what cards to run and what to leave out. So for starters, we have our blocker tier. So I'm going to go ahead and go over our okay blockers. We just have 3 in that section, nothing too special. The 5-drop purple does have a nice effect where if you don -1, he becomes a blocker and he gets plus 1000. Otherwise, he is not a blocker, but he is still a very good 5-drop 6000 body on your board. We have good blockers. We have the 3 drops are just they give you good value. There's 3 drop for a blocker, and then Diamante, really good restand effect. 5 drop 6k. If you leave 2 Don up while 1 is attached on him, he will restand. So there's really good situations where you can just do that if you have an event in hand. And Jim, if you want to go over the great blockers.
Yeah, sure. So we got 2 of the special what are these alt arts? It's the Law and the Boa. Obviously we know these are 2 great cards already. Everybody's seen these cards, and obviously if you get them in your packs, you should run them in your decks. These are great cards. And then we have the new Sanji, the new trigger blocker, fantastic card. The Bartolomeo, a 2k and a blocker at the same time. This might be the most obvious pickup. If you ever get this card, you need to run it, no matter how many copies. And then we have Sabo, which is going to be a cycle effect on play and a blocker that prevents any of your characters from being KO'd by effects. I don't think there's too much card KOing. There is a bit, but I mean, Sabo can definitely help you with that. But that's not the main reason we play him. The main reason we play him is because he's a blocker. But
great blocker.
He also has a few added effects and a counter, nonetheless. So
blocker, cycler, and can be used as a counter.
So any blocker you get in this pre-release event, you're gonna run. You have to any of these cards, even though we have okay, good, and great blockers. If you get any of these cards, you're using it and you're putting it in your deck. Just because there's so many cards, as you'll see soon, that you do not want to run. If you get any of these cards, they're going in your deck immediately. We're just showing you what are the better than the other blockers and stuff like that.
100%. So next up, we have the 2K tier. So basically, as we can count here, there's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 or 12 2Ks in total for this set. So a good amount. I don't know how many you'll see, maybe around anywhere from 2 to 6 on average. But so here on the 2K only, you kind of only want to run these ever for 2K counters. Not really good effects, probably either leader locked or just a subpar effect. And then we have the best 2Ks, which these 2 are actually huge because obviously beige, we know if he trigger it, you can, delay your opponent's offense because one of their attacks is going to be nullified as it cannot attack with the beige trigger. And then the Sasaki, it's a 2K counter. And on top of that, if you have a bad starting hand, you basically re-roll your hand. It's an extra mulligan.
Yeah, and it's a 4K body, which isn't even bad.
Yeah, 4K body means you only have to attach 1 onto it to swing 5. Or if you're running Zoro, I don't know if we touched on this, but like the past 3 pre-release events, you either want to run Kid or Zoro to have the best success in this kind of little funky format. If you're feeling spicy, maybe run Katakuri to, play a little bit with life. But, stick with those leaders. And these are the 2Ks. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Now we have the big vanillas. So big vanillas in this format are your best friends. Even some lower end ones, like some 3/5s, could be useful, but any big vanilla is just really going to help you shape your board, and it's going to be a very pesky character for your opponents to get rid of.
Yeah, big stat lines are really hard to get rid of because pretty much the only way to get rid of them is to swing big into them, which is going to cost them a lot of Dawn if they're only using leader. Like say you play this 6/8 Kuro on board and you swing with it. Obviously, if he wants to swing the minimum 8k, he's going to have to put 3 Dawn on leader, which is going to give him not too many Dawn to work with that turn, and that also gives you a free 1k counter.
Yep, perfect.
So these big vanillas are going to run matches. If you get any of these, you are insta-putting them in your deck. as well as the blocker and 2Ks. If you see any of these cards that we've shown so far, these are insta pickups that you will put in your deck.
Yep, 100%. So we're gonna go ahead and move on now. So we have the do not run these tier. Uh, just gonna go over these really quickly. These cards here, obviously it's a lot to look at and a lot to see, but these cards just have very subpar effects or very leader locked, very niche effects. So I wouldn't recommend running any of these. Maybe there's situations, since we're running 40 card decks for this format, you might have to take one or two of these, and that's fine. Just get a card with a 1K counter, and you'll be all right. But yeah, I wouldn't run any of these.
Yeah. The majority of these are either just laughably bad effects that you're never going to be able to use, but actually the most of them are leader locked.
Yeah.
Or they're archetype locked. Like searchers that say they search a certain type of card, you're never going to have the consistency to run that, so you would never run that. Or cards like Karita Coliseum that only give Dressrosa type characters the ability to attack characters on the turn they're played. Like cards like they're really not good. They're only going to be good is if you somehow get a completely like good deck that is like tailored to use that one card. So unfortunately, yeah, for the most part, stay away from these cards. Based on the cards you get, some of them may work, and unfortunately, sometimes you may not get enough of the staple cards to not have to run one or two of these.
Yep, correct. 100%. No, yeah, you said that perfect. We'll go ahead and skip over to the next section here, because yeah, we don't want to touch any of those cards. So this would be considered our in the middle tier. So run these if there's nothing better to take. Like I explained earlier, you run 40 cards and 1 leader, right? So 41 total, and you get about 72 cards from your 6 packs, and so you kind of have to get rid of a little under half of the cards, but sometimes you don't really get what you want. And so these are some cards to look at to, if you really need to, if let's say you're at 30 cards, 35 cards, and you really need to hit that 40 mark, these are some potential cards where you actually do want to run just to hit that threshold to be able to play. So here we have the Usopp. He KOs on KO. He kills a 5,000 original power or less. And while you may think, oh wow, that's actually really good, it's really easy to play around. And especially if your opponent doesn't have anything 5,000 or below, then they can just play anything 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 power. This is useless. If they know this is on board and you ever swing with it, they're just going to kill it off. It doesn't KO anything before they play anything, right? So it can be, you play around it. And so it's not the best card, but it is a nice 4-drop 5,000 body. And next up, we have Miss All Sunday. She ramps you a Dawn. And so if you play her on curve, you go to 6 Dawn on your 5 Dawn turn and you draw a card, which is good. But sometimes you kind of want to drop a 5-drop vanilla to have that extra power on board, because the draw might not do too much. And ramping 1 is okay. But if you don't really have any synergy for that ramp 1, it might be useless in the grand scheme of things. And then I'll
Not
go
to
over.
mention the
Yeah.
trigger is not bad. It can win you games randomly.
Yeah, triggered Dawn -2, and you play her, right? So you have an extra body to swing your last turn. I'll go over one more, and I'll pass it on to you, Jim. So we have Mr. Hanger. He is 2-drop, Dawn ×1. Oh no, you just have to rest him. My fault. You just rest him, and then you cycle a card. You trash one from hand, and you draw one. So if you don't really have anything else, he is good to like being able to see the cards that you need, and very low cost. Not much else to say about him. And then you want to continue?
Yeah. So next up we have Mr. Five. You're mainly running this because he's a big body. I'm not going to lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
Doing Dom -2 on the turn you play him is going to be really, really, really bad in this format, just because you kind of need every Dawn you can get. So
Mm-hmm.
you're mainly running this guy because he's an 8K at the end of the day. Mr. Four we already touched on. He's a blocker, so you kind of have to run this guy. Any blocker you get, you're going to need to run.
Yeah.
And then Hyrudin, kind of the same thing as Mr. Five. He's a 7K body. You need to run the big bodies in this game mode. That's just how it goes. If you run little bodies, your hand is going to run thin and your board is going to be empty. So cards like this are really good to play on curve, and also his effect can be used possibly. It's not terrible.
Yeah. Definitely some
And then
cards where you can yeah, I mean there's combos for it. Then we have the secret rare 8-drop Don Quixote Rosinante. He's a big body. He is an 8-drop for 8,000, so not the best in terms of power for your board. And if you have a 5-drop, he is stuck to 5-drop only. If you have a 5-drop, a green 5-drop, you can play. I think there is a couple targets that he can have, but it's not
There's
enough to.
two.
Yeah,
It's
there's
Diamante and it's the new law. Not the new law, the old
the
law.
old
If
blocker
so,
law.
so if you get if you get the
Yeah.
law altar, you can actually use that.
So definitely not a card that if you get you want to run. But I mean, if you have 1 or 2 targets for it, it might as well, right? Probably won't see the combo, but at the end of the day, it is an 8-drop, 8,000 for your board. So we'll skip over him. Next is King Kong Gun. So 3-drop. I think you only ever want to take this, not if you have better cards. You'd rather take a counter over this, but if you do have 3, 4, or 5 Dressrosa type characters, you could potentially run this just for that extra 6,000. You probably won't ever get to 15 cards in trash, but if you do this paired with a Dressrosa character, maybe like a Kyros or something of that sort, would be pretty insane. You know, to get a big swing off a smaller body, they won't expect it. And then we have a 1-drop Dawn -1. You pay 1 Dawn, you get plus 1,000 for the turn, and you go ahead and rest a 4 or less. So you can rest potentially for your game-ending turns. You can rest a blocker that's 4 or less. You can rest something to get value that your opponent just played that maybe they weren't expecting you to have that. And if they have multiple swings that turn, you get plus 1,000 for the entire turn. So you're saving on counter. You want to continue?
Yeah, doing the last three decent cards. It's going to be, I don't remember what this card's called, but it's going to be a 1-cost event that is going to
This one
Dom
here.
-1 on play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to just give anything, leader or character, plus 1,000 power, not for the battle, but for the turn. So if your opponent has a lot of small guys on board and they're going to do a lot of small swings, now they need to invest 1,000, or they need to invest 1 more Dawn and do every single one of those swings. So this can be good in certain scenarios. I don't think it's great though, but decent nonetheless. And next up, we have Happiness Punch. It's just going to be for 1. It's a 2K. It's basically a 2K on an event for the most part. If for some reason your leader didn't get to swing that turn and it's standing, it is also an extra -1K, which is interesting in some scenarios, possibly.
Yeah.
And last up, we have Delinja. He is a 3/4 with 1,000 counter, and he's going to be end of turn. You can set one of your Dawn cards as active. So as you can see just right here, there's 3 decent 1-cost events that you could be using with this effect. And if you decide not to swing with him, I think you are going to want to swing with him, but
Yeah.
your opponent is definitely going to want to get rid of him 100%, which could almost make him like a blocker in some scenarios, but it's just not a bad card at the end of the day. It's better than any of those really bad cards that are leader locked and things like that.
Yeah, there's not much better options here to run on curve for 3-drop, maybe the 3-drop ulti. But for the most part, having that 1 extra Dawn active is pretty good, especially if you have a Diamante. You can have one, only leave 1 up, and then he'll give you the second one. But for the most part, like you said, you want to swing with him. You attach 1 Dawn, you get a 5K swing off, and on top of that, your opponent's going to want to get rid of him. So that's basically him getting an attack off and being used as a blocker. So very good use. And then something we didn't mention about these purple 1-drop cards, they also ramp you 1 Dawn. So if you do pick these up off of life, you can ramp 1 Dawn instantly and put you ahead of your opponent. Maybe they won't expect it. I think this is going to be a very good pickup. All right, guys, this is going to be our last tier. This is the must take tier, as you can see right here. And right here, it says must take. We have to go over these cards because these are going to be your best friends in this format. We'll go over these 3. First, here we have this 9-drop Whitebeard. This is from OP02. We have this 6-drop 7,000 Sakazuki. Sorry, I was blanking out. And then this 5-cost 6,000 power Magellan. So all these cards, we already do know what they do. They're not new. But if you get them in this alt-art form, you definitely want to run them in this format because they're amazing cards. So we're just going to go ahead and get that out of the way. Now we can go move on to the new cards. We'll start off with the first one here. This 4-drop green card, 5,000 power, Dawn X1. At the end of your turn, set this card as active. So you can play this on curve and then get free swings, free value. Your opponent can never get rid of this because for the most part, you're always going to want to attach 1 to swing. And this is a pesky card. It is basically like your Kyros, where your Kyros is just never gonna die when you're running Rebecca, but having it in a 4 drop 5,000 green form where you just have to attach one Dawn, so you get 6k swings off just for that one Dawn. Amazing card. Um, and then what do we have next?
And next up, we have Pell. He's going to be a 5/6 with no counter. And Don X1, when you attack, he is going to KO any 4,000 or less power character. So he's kind of like a big Robin, very strong in a meta where your opponent's going to be running like a few, like 2/4 vanillas and these like lower end cards. He's going to be able to KO a lot of stuff. Not to mention he's a 6K, which is really good in this format, and attaching one Dawn swinging for 7, it's going to be really hard to counter out of.
Yeah, and then next up we have King. He is a 7 drop 8,000 body, which is an insane body, right? Just 1,000 short off the vanilla stat line, but he is a 1k counter, and on top of that, his on play is you draw one card. So in this format, there's not much cards where you can just simply play it to draw, so there's not much generation. This card, not only does it give you your big body, it sorts that problem out for you, gives you an extra card to either counter with, play, etc.
Yep, great card. And next up, we've got Kaido. This is going to be your king of big bodies in the set. He is the biggest of the big bodies. He is your 10 cost, 12,000 power. And on play, he sends back an 8 and a 3 cost card to the owner's hand. Fantastic card. Just the stat line alone is going to be winning you games, but sitting back at 8 is going to be really gross in some scenarios. You don't even just send back an 8. If you send back like a 6 cost vanilla, that is already insane tempo. Because if your opponent wants to get that card on the board again, they need to spend 6 Dom to do it. This card is a staple. If you see it, you are 100% using it.
Yeah, definitely a game changer. Okay, moving on to the next card here, we have Spiderweb. So this is basically like Paradise Waterfall, but with the 2 drop version, where instead of just one Dawn for 2,000, you pay 2 Dawn for 4,000, and you get to set one of your characters as active. So this card is insane for value. Not only do you get to block a big swing, you also get to save one of your characters on the board, and so that momentum swing, that momentum shift can be like game winning.
And next up, we have Weaklings do not get to choose how they die. It is a 5 cost event. It's going to be a main and counter event. So if you leave 5 Dawn up, which I mean you probably won't be doing, but if you do, you can use it on counter event. But it's just going to rest a card, any of your opponent's card, and then after that, it's going to KO a 6 or less rested card. So you can use this to rest the card you want to attack into, and then say KO one of their 6 or lesses that they swung with last turn in the same vein, in the same play, allowing you to clear 2 cards within 1 turn, which is going to be really strong in this format where board presence is basically king. And then obviously it also has a trigger, which I think is just rest a 5 or less.
No, it's kind
Oh,
of weird. You activate 5 Dawn, so you
Oh, okay. Activate 5 Dawn, which surprisingly could come in handy, but not the best, obviously.
yeah,
But
definitely not
the
in this
main,
format.
yeah, we're playing this for the main effect, which is going to be disgusting in this format.
Yeah, and then we'll go ahead and move over to the last card in this first row here. As you can see, the 6 drop 6,000 treble. So he on play gets to KO a 5 or less, a rested 5 or less. Sorry, it has to be rested. But then on top of that, he does have a good effect. So on your opponent's turn, when your opponent's attacking, you can pay 2 Dawn to rest or 4 or less. So it's basically like a Punk Gibson without getting the 4K counter. It's the Punk Gibson rest effect on treble, right? So which is really good. Sometimes your opponent might not know all the cards and might miss that you have that on board, and you can just really blindside him with that effect and rest one of their 4 drops if they're not playing around it.
Yep, very, very strong card. And next up, we've got the 8/9 Luffy. He is a 8/9 with no counter, and he's just going to have Banish. Big stat line, which, as we said a million times by now, is the king in this format, and Banish, which is going to be really, really good if they don't have any blockers on board. You're basically guaranteed to trash one of their life cards. This card, yeah, it's fantastic. You are definitely running this card.
Yeah, 100%. Not much to say. Banish, you get to trash one of their lives for free. Well, not for free, but they would have to pay a hefty amount of cards just for that.
Hmm.
And then next up, we have the 9 cost Yamato. So this card is actually going to be ran in a good amount of decks coming in OP04. But for this meta, it is an insane card. So if you get to play it while you're at 1 life, while you're at 0 life, and you can potentially get a life on top, you don't really care about too much for the KO power. For the most part, by the time you play it, you both are going to be around 2 to 3 Dawn. So like a 4 cost, 3 to 5 cost is looking at your range to play this on curve, which is not bad. That's not terrible if you kill a 4 drop or maybe potentially a 5 drop. But the big thing is just getting that 9,000 body on board as early as possible. Like your opponent is just not going to be able to clear this. So yeah, 100% you want to take the 9 cost Yamato.
Yep, another great big body with a lot of utility. Next up, we've got Luffy again. He's going to be a 7 cost, 7,000 power that can attack active characters, which is going to be insane in this format. But also, activate main if you have 7 cards in your trash, which in this format is going to be a little difficult, but you should be able to do it at least once per game. You can actually restand him and set him as active, which is going to allow him either to take out 2 bodies in 1 turn, protect himself if you just want to swing with him and then set him back as active, or
Mm-hmm.
even just go for a game.
Mm-hmm.
And a decent stat line. You probably need to run this card just for the board clear alone. I think it's going to be really good for that.
Yeah, definitely a variety of ways you can use that Luffy. Probably one of the best cards coming out of this set. We're going to go ahead and continue on to the next one. So it's going to be the 8 cost Croc, as you can see here. So 9,000 power for 8 cost. His effect is tied to Barrack Works. So won't be able to use his on play, which is trash.
Well,
Dawn -2, you add the top card of your deck to your life. But that's okay because the second effect is still usable. So if you're already at 10 Dawn or more, this wouldn't matter too much. You Dawn -1, you can trash a card, and then you draw the top card from your deck. So you basically cycle your hand. If you don't have a counter, you can trash a dead card, potentially pick up a counter, especially on those crucial turns. And that effect happens when your opponent is attacking. It is only once per turn, but definitely a great card, a huge body for 8 cost, and a must take.
a little niche thing with this 8/9 crocodile. The blue starter deck crocodile is a completely usable leader in this meta. I don't think it's definitely nowhere near the best, but it's usable. And if you get this card, it actually works because even though it's not a purple leader, it is a Baroque Works leader, and that's all this card looks for when it does its on play heal effect.
Yeah.
So if you really want to, you can after you get this card, you can run Blue Crocodile. But next up, we'll have Red Rock. We've talked about Red Rock multiple times by now on this channel. This card is going to bottom deck anything, and in this meta where you're trying to play as many big guys as you can, this card is just going to be fantastic. Not to mention, if you get the trigger to bottom deck a 4 or less, this card is going to hit hard on some cards in this format for sure,
Yeah,
and set you forward by a lot.
yeah, because like we're limited on the amount of board clears, bottom decks, and stuff like that. So just getting this event is huge, and it's gonna give you the edge definitely when you're playing to win and go for that winner card for the pre-release event. Next up, we have the 5-drop 6,000 power Zoro. As you can see here, it's the last card that we're going to be talking about. On play, give one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power, which is very nice because most often your opponent is going to swing at you, leave a character on their board vulnerable, and you can play this and swing at it with your leader, with other characters you've played. And so it just gets you a good amount of value as you would want to clear any card. Your opponent's not going to want to counter out 2-3 cards for a character that's minus 2,000 power that you can potentially swing at multiple times. So all right, Pirates, thank you guys so much for watching and staying till the end of this video. It really means a lot. You guys have been showing crazy support, and if you guys keep doing that, you know we're going to keep dropping daily videos. I hope you guys really enjoy this one. This one is a little longer video, but definitely very informative, especially for people that are going to do the OP04 pre-release event, try to go for that winner card. But besides that, we thank you guys again. We want to make sure that you guys are liking our video, subscribe to our channel. It'd mean a lot. And comment down below what you're going to be playing as far as leader goes for the OP04 pre-release event. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.